how you can do a reading to help your decision-making process with the help of the tarot. And I'm also going to be using the I Ching, so it's going to be a mixed reading, tarot and I Ching mixed together to help me make a decision. So this is an actual reading that I wanted to do for myself, for my situation, but I thought I would film it, so if somebody's interested in doing this tarot reading for themselves, they can see how I do it. Or if you're not confident in your knowledge of the tarot, or you want to have an outsider's perspective, you can also commission this reading type from me. So, the decision maker is a fairly simple reading type, and I'm not sure if I have already posted a video on my channel using this reading type, but I think I might have. But anyway, I wanted to elaborate on how you can use this reading. First of all, in my opinion, when making a decision, it's always best to think things through rationally first and make a mental or an actual list of pros and cons. And if you can't really come to a conclusion even after analyzing the problem in a logical way, the tarot can really help you put things into perspective, because it's going to facilitate the intuitive side of things. So it's going to turn on your intuition, and you will be able to have a better feeling or a better intuitive understanding of what the decision itself is about and which way you should go. So I don't want to get into the specifics of my decision that I need to make, but it's about a new apartment. So right now we have two options, and they both seem equally good, and they both have their disadvantages as well. And I find it kind of hard to make my mind up about which option would be better in the long run. So that's why I'm doing this spread. So what you want to do is you want to pick one card that is going to represent you at this moment. So this is for me. And by the way, if you feel like you're also in a situation where you're kind of in a dilemma and you're not sure what to do, and you want to try to apply this reading to yourself, go ahead and try. Maybe it's going to work out for you as well. So the point of this whole thing is not to have the tarot make the decision for you in any way, but to help your mind and your intuition see things more clearly. So the first card is me. Okay. And actually I'm drawing this card for myself and for my boyfriend, because it's a decision that we're making together as a couple. after you have your first card, you want to decide which option is going to be A and which option is going to be B. So first and second option. And the way I do this is I either pick the first one to be the first that was chronologically first, so the first option that ever even manifested itself in the context of the situation. Or if time is not really a factor in this, then you can also make the first option the option that makes the most logical sense, or the most conventional option. So the most obvious option. And then the second one should be a more unorthodox, more outside the box kind of option. So option A in my case, and I'm drawing 2 cards now, is the first option that I've ever heard about, and the second one came later. Okay. And 2 cards for option B. Okay. And normally there would be 3 cards for each option, but since I would like to include the Yiching in this, the last 2 cards are going to be Yiching cards. Okay. One. Okay. And 2. Okay. Hey everyone, I'm back. I had to take a break in between because my boyfriend came home. And I also wanted to take some time to reflect on the meaning of this reading. And in light of new information, it seems like it fits even better than I first thought. So, just to give you some context, with the first option, we would have to make a lot of compromises. We would need to live with somebody else, which we have never done before, as a couple. And the place wouldn't be as central. With the other option, we could be on our own, but there's some details that are making this a less reliable option. And that is absolutely, I think, is absolutely reflected in the reading. Well, so what you do with this reading type is you first look at the first card, which represents you as the questioner and where you're coming from. And for this, we have the Page of Cups here. And that is telling me that although I'm trying to be rational and cautious and really logical about this whole problem, there's an element of emotion because we have cups here, and but it's not negative emotion. It's more of a realization that this is not just a practical step that we're taking. It also involves emotional and spiritual development. And since pages represent the beginner stage of any process, this is also telling me that we as a couple are ready to learn. We're ready to experience something new. We're going to be moving to a city as opposed to a little village where we are right now. And interestingly enough, this place where we live right now is extremely noisy, and it's really hard for me to record my videos. But the place we would be moving in, if we chose option A, would be incredibly quiet, and that's something that I really like about it. By the way, you might have noticed that all the cards came out in reverse. And what I do when that happens is I simply just interpret each card as if they were upright. And even if there are more reversed cards than cards upright in a spread, you can do that if you feel like it. I mostly only do it when I realize that most of the cards would be in reverse, because I was holding the deck upside down. So what you do next with this reading is you take a look at how the two different decisions would unfold. And I'm gonna just look at the first option now. We're starting with a major arcana card, and that's the Emperor. And that is an indication right off the bat that this decision has the potential to be life-changing, because it's a major arcana card, and therefore it's more aligned with deep transitional stages and profound transformation. And what the Emperor represents in this context is the necessity to introduce a different structure into our lives and to hold on to that, because if you're living with other people, there's certain rules that you need to follow. Everybody who's living in a community needs to conform and obey these rules, and that makes sense because that's the key to having a healthy, efficient system of any kind. So there's an element of strictness here, but then we have King of Wands. And the King of Wands has a similar quality to the Emperor in that it has a high level of authority, but the King of Wands indicates more inspiration, more freedom that is building upon this newfound structure. And it suggests to me that creatively this could be a better choice. And also I have done readings on our relationship and several different life situations, and I find it beneficial to look at those readings in the context of one another. And there's a very important storyline, so to say, in our readings with Wands court cards. So seeing the King of Wands here is suggesting to me that this choice would make a lot of sense creatively, and also from a point of view of introducing more order, more structure, more discipline into our lives. And the last card here is the I Ching, hexagram 51. And I believe it's called shock in English. And if I'm not mistaken, the Chinese pronunciation is Jian. And this is a little bit of a warning here, not to take this transition lightly. It's an indication that the first option will be more shocking, for lack of a better word. It will challenge us, but that's the way to grow. This card, I believe, has certain qualities that the Tower card from the tarot would have. So it speaks to situations where your normal routine is disrupted and you're forced into a new situation. So this is I take this as a warning that this will not be a smooth transition, that it will have its ups and downs, and that it will put some pressure on us to grow and to become better people. So yeah, even though before doing this reading I was leaning more towards the second option, now I see how the first option makes more sense. So with the second option, option B, we have the Nine of Cups as the opening card, which would make sense since we have the Page of Cups as the significator for the questioner. And it's a card of happiness and joy, but also hedonism in a way. So, or hedonism, I'm not sure how to pronounce that word, sorry, off the top of my head. But anyway, it indicates a smooth transition from this state to the first stage of option B. So there's some instant gratification, there's some comfort, so with this option we're staying more inside our comfort zone. It's not as challenging, it's more pleasant, since we would be living on our own in a separate apartment. But then we have the Five of Swords, and that immediately stopped me in my tracks, because intuitively we were not feeling so good about the second option anyway, because even though it sounds better and having our own place and being independent sounds promising, the owners of the place are not really communicating that well, so there's a lot of insecurities and a lot of unknowns. So I immediately had the feeling that this could create more problems as we go along, and there would be tension and conflicts, and a lack of cooperation. Basically, that's what the Five of Swords stands for. So option B could be a good solution in the short term, but in the long term it would create more problems. But even if we go ahead and do this, there are lessons to be learned, and the 15th hexagram, which is called humility, is indicating a situation where your ego is tested, where you need to learn some humility, you need to learn to be humble and to get along with people. And I believe that there's a very strong connection between these two cards here, the Five of Swords and this hexagram. So both options would be challenging, definitely, but in different ways. And since we have one major arcana card here and one card that fits into the sequence of significant cards from previous readings, even with the warning that it's going to disrupt our sense of normalcy to an extent, by now I'm confident that we should go along with this, because we have two minor arcana cards here, and the payoff, the last card, is not as convincing to me. When you're trying to interpret this reading type, you always need to keep in mind what it is you're looking for. And we are on a learning curve as a couple, and our current position is that of a desire to learn, to grow, an openness to expand our horizon. So yeah, by now the first option makes more sense logically, and the tarot is also supporting this idea with a hint of a warning, which I truly appreciate, because although I realized that it would be somewhat challenging, I didn't necessarily think it through to the full extent of what it would mean for us to choose the first option. But yeah, this hexagram is making it clear that there will be stress associated with this, and we'll be required to be flexible and adapt to this new situation. But ultimately, this is gonna be like a nudge, or like a an instigator to go deeper and to develop in our personal lives as well. hope that you found this reading interesting, even if it was about me. I encourage you to try this reading type if you're confronted with a situation where you find it hard to make up your mind. And even if you have multiple options, let's say you have like 4 different options that you could go with, you can always create categories. So you could lump 2 options into one bigger category, and the other 2 would belong to the other one, based on what really connects them. And that way you could narrow it down at least a little bit. So this is a great reading type to get a sense of direction in difficult situations, I believe. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.